So we've established that Hayley turned chaos into chromatic content and somehow made band drama disappear behind a polychromatic smokescreen. But 2013 was about to prove whether her subliminal conditioning could work in reverse, because sometimes the most radical move is going back to where you started. Remember that iconic tangerine shade that launched 1,000 scene kid makeovers? Well, guess what made its triumphant return right as Paramore was promoting their self titled album? Here's a hint, it was that same iconic tangerine shade. This wasn't some coincidental throwback or creative drought. This was Hayley testing whether nostalgia could be used just as effectively as novelty, which is why I'm calling this the nostalgia orange era. And it runs from roughly 2013 to 2017. Fans had spent 2 years being conditioned to expect constant change, so when she showed up with that signature orange glow again, it felt like coming home after a wild night out. Suddenly, everyone was having flashbacks to misery business and their childhood bedrooms covered in AP band posters. But they were experiencing those feelings through the lens of a more sophisticated, evolved version of the artist they'd grown up with. This is where her earlier investment in visual trust started to pay dividends in the way that would make Wall Street jealous. Throughout 2014 and 2015, she started leaving these sort of strategic hints. Forest green that looked like she'd been living in a fairy tale, electric blue that seemed to conduct energy, deep purple that bordered on mystical. Each shade felt like a limited edition drop, creating urgency around every transformation. Fans were collecting her looks like Pokemon cards, never knowing which variation would become the next iconic era. During this period, her personal life provided plenty of subplot material. Her relationship with Newfound Glory's Chad Gilbert had evolved from rebound romance to serious commitment. They got engaged in 2014, which coincided with some of her most adventurous pigment choices. It's almost like happiness gave her permission to take bigger risks, knowing she had emotional stability as her foundation. But relationships, as we know, can be so unpredictable. By 2016, what had seemed like a pop punk fairy tale romance was starting to show breakage that no amount of leave in moisturizing treatments could repair. The marriage that was supposed to be her happily ever after lasted exactly 11 months, ending in divorce papers filed in July 2017. While Hayley was dealing with very public relationship drama, her chromatic consistency kept fans focused on her artistry rather than her personal struggles. The strategic visual choices weren't just building brand recognition, they were protecting her privacy by giving people something else to analyze. And then came the move that retrospectively makes everything else look like the dress rehearsal. In 2016, while most of her pop peers were launching generic beauty lines or partnering with established cosmetic giants, Hayley did something that seems obvious in hindsight but was absolutely next level. She launched Good Die Young with her longtime stylist Brian O'Connor. Other artists were slapping their names on random products, and she was creating a business around the specific technique that had made her famous. The audacity is inspiring when you really think about it. She had spent over a decade training fans to associate chromatic evolution with artistic evolution, proving that change could be thrilling, not threatening. And then she turned around and said, "Want to try this for yourself?" She wasn't just modeling the behavior, she was teaching other people to do the same thing. The business model was pure genius because it solved a problem that traditional beauty brands never addressed. How do you make dramatic change feel safe? Most people want to reinvent themselves but are terrified of the mental and social consequences. Hayley had proven through her own career that transformation could be empowering rather than destructive, and now she was packaging that confidence for retail. Good Die Young wasn't competing with L'Oreal or Revlon, it was creating an entirely new category. This wasn't just about covering gray roots or following seasonal trends. This was using visual transformation as a tool for emotional evolution, sold by someone who'd been publicly demonstrating the technique since she was 16 years old. The timing also happened to align brilliantly with where social media culture was at, where everybody was becoming their own personal brand and originality was more important than ever. Instagram had turned everyone into their own art director, and suddenly regular people needed the same change management tools that had worked for professional performers. But perhaps most importantly, Good Die Young represented the ultimate validation of Hayley's visual strategy. And this approach wasn't only effective for rock stars, it was a universally applicable technique for anyone brave enough to use their appearance as a storytelling device. As 2017 approached, Hayley had successfully turned personal grooming into a legitimate business empire, while simultaneously using that empire to expand her artistic influence. The nostalgia orange era had proven that going backward could be just as powerful as moving forward, as long as you understand the psychological mechanisms behind why people respond to visual cues. But success has a way of making you restless. And Hayley was about to test whether her legacy could handle the biggest transformation yet. Because just as fans had learned to trust her ability to make the familiar feel fresh, she was preparing to show them what happened when everything they thought they knew about her appearance and her sound got turned completely upside down.